Okay. Been a while since we've done some long form. Just thought I would let my shorts propagate out there into the universe. No rugby last weekend. I was on a stag do last weekend. That meant that it would have been more effort to actually create a long form video, which I have ideas in my head of what I want to do in between weeks of interesting rugby. Although looking at the schedule we've got, I don't think there's going to be another week of that. There's at least one game, I think, every weekend with some interesting rugby. But week 3, Rugby Championship.
Steve Madden. Steve.
Rugby Championship. Some big games this weekend. I think we have had probably the best game already, but I think there's some stuff that'll be really interesting to learn this weekend. I mean, why waste any more time? Let's just get straight into it. Come on, let's go. Oh yeah. So this is it. This is us here. Last 2 games of the championship in the shortened tournament this year round. We've got 2 games that I think are kind of equal interest. Should I just go straight into breaking down each individual game? I've got anything that I want to say? No. Let's just go into the individual games. So, first game, Australia-New Zealand. Obviously, the All Blacks came up really good against the Springboks not last weekend, the weekend before. They did what I told them to do. They put Rich Mwanga on. I don't think that was the only reason they catapulted themselves into such a high lead and managed to hold on to it. I think part of it could be blamed on the Springboks and the way they decide to select their team. But we'll get into that later and how that's changed to something that I think was better. But the New Zealanders, the All Blacks, are coming off a high. They played such superb rugby against the Springboks that who in God's name would pick Australia to win this game? Well, I'm not picking Australia to win the game. I'm not going crazy. I'm aware my Rugby Championship predictions have been probably a bit on the safe side. However, I've gotten them all right. Check the records if you want. But this is a game that I said at the beginning, it would be closer than you would think it would be before the game started. And I think that's it. I think these 2 teams are so far away from each other from what we've seen so far that if I keep with my statement that it's going to be closer than you think it's going to be, that would be ballsy. However, New Zealand is still going to win. I don't know the New Zealand team that's going to play. They could choose to keep the momentum from the last game against the Springboks and play the exact same team. That's a legitimate thing to do. I would, especially with the World Cup coming around the corner, I would see probably why you want to nail on a 15 that's the 15 that's going to take you through the tournament. But then there's the argument of depth, and 15 players can't win you a World Cup. I would be tempted, if I was New Zealand, to play the full 15 that started last week and play them this week. You're far enough away from the World Cup to keep them fresh. You know that the replacements that you have on the bench, for the most part, are very experienced candidates. Don't think they need massive test experience to bring them up and have them as solid replacements to come on. And it almost felt last week that we've waited all these months, years, whatever, for the All Blacks to look like the All Blacks again, and they have for the first time. Why not see if the chemistry is the same in the next game? Whether this is Ian Foster, I understand he's a bit of a tinker, so he may not do that. However, I'm saying what I would do if I was Ian Foster. Play the 15 that played last week, see if they click again in the same way, and then in these warm-up games that we got coming up to the World Cup, another one against the Springboks, play some other players. Test some things out. Move guys around. Put in substitutes. And I think Ian Foster's going to go with that rather than my suggestion of playing the same 15. So, what are Australia going to do then to be able to go with my prediction of competing? Well, I think what they're going to do, or what they should have done, is the last 2 weeks worked on defensive rugby. From the highlights that I watched, it looked like a lot of the issues that they had in terms of having so many points put up against themselves was down to bad defensive organization. As we went through the clips, we went through the highlights. They were in my shorts. Check them out if you want. That's fixable, and it's an Eddie Jones. Like, you would expect Eddie Jones to have a team that's defensively capable. And if you've got 2 weeks to fix the problem, you've got 2 weeks to fix the problem. And you should do it. So I think New Zealand are going to win, but I think Australia are going to keep it close for those two reasons. I think Ian Foster's going to experiment with the team, and I think Australia are going to have their defensive situation not sorted. But it's going to be better, and they'll be more competitive, but they will lose. And this is another interesting fact here. Oh, not this interview again. That was scarring. We have a replacement at 9 and 10. Now, Carter Gordon coming on at 10, I understand. I think he deserves a chance. I think he's a good player. I've watched him briefly for the Melbourne Rebels a few games, so I don't have an expert opinion on him. But I think he's worth a try. I don't think Wade Cooper's played particularly badly, but I don't think it's been his game either. They need to have a fly half that, how do I put this? Is just a more solid player. And I don't mean that in terms of being a slight on Wade Cooper. I think Wade Cooper for me feels like a bit of a Danny Cipriani player, where you're going to get what you get with him attacking, and and most other players can't replicate that. But defensively, I don't think he's as solid. He's not going to always make the right decision to kick into the territory or where it needs to be. Because the reason I hesitate in speaking like this is because Wade Cooper, like, he doesn't shy away from tackling. He's probably like the worst tackler I've ever seen in professional rugby. Like, fully commits, most of the time gets the guy down, but his technique is just like awful. Like, he goes so high. It's this change at 9. I don't know a lot about him. I can't remember him much from watching Melbourne Rebels play. But I think Nick White he's played really well, to be fair. So I don't know why he's not starting. I guess maybe he needs a rest. He's a bit older. I think there's probably the factor that both Tate McDermott and Gordon play for the Rebels, so there's chemistry there. So we'll see what happens. This is interesting. Gordon's Rebel teammate Andrew Kellaway is set to play fullback, with Jordan Petir in the frame to start alongside. Oh, so they're making a lot of different selections. There's expected to be a place on the bench for Izzy Parise, who I thought was superb. Andrew Kellaway coming on is an interesting selection as well. As I said, Tom Wright is that wild card in the back line who, he's unpredictable, but it's both in a good way and a bad way. Again, I don't know Kellaway too much, but I don't know. The selections speak to me as though, like, let's play it a little bit safer, right? Turn to fit again. Could try Tom Hooper again. See how that goes. I don't know. I think that I don't know too much about these selections, so I'm not making this comment purely off of that. I'm making the comment purely off of Eddie Jones and what he does. Yeah, I just think that what he would do is work on the defense and select a more solid team that can be a bit more cohesive in defense and be competitive. So I think they'll catch the All Blacks on like a not the best day, because they'll be experimenting and they'll be more solid. So yeah, New Zealand to win. We give a score. Come on, stop being a coward. We've watched enough Super Rugby at this point. Let's say New Zealand 24, Australia 18. Let's go for that. I think it's going to be closer. This is going to be a really stupid prediction when New Zealand completely blow the water out of Australia. I was going to say blow the water out their sails, but I mean, they could do so much damage that they don't even know if they've had their wind taken out of their sails or if they've blown to smithereens. So anyway, that's my prediction for that game. Box Argentina. Did I say that Argentina were going to beat the Box? I don't think I did. I think my prediction was Argentina would beat Australia and the South Africa would beat Argentina this weekend. And I think that's particularly true for what the Springboks usually give us, which is pretty cool. I like the Springboks do this. They give us the team selection very early, and it means that me, a normal 9 to 5 guy, who only gets a chance on a Wednesday to record a long video and then maybe on a weekend to do the review. I get a chance to talk about the team selection, and I get a chance to talk about, what I talked about at the end of the game against New Zealand. Who have we now got on the pitch that didn't start against the All Blacks? Look at that. Malcolm Marx. Look at this. Marco van Staden. Peter Steph Dutoit. I don't think it's said like that. He's not French. But he's the blonde dude who came on from Franco Mostert, who was much bigger. Look, he's at number 8. Vermeulen. Scrum half is Grant Williams. And look who's playing at 10. Look at that name right there. Made a show about that. Didn't get many likes. Doesn't matter. You know what matters? That I said they should do this, and clearly the South African coaching staff agree with me. We'll see how it plays out. I think they need to trust in less flair in the floor, less flair in the forwards, more giant men that graft and do hard work, and then in the backs, let this boy cook. Let Libbock cook. Honestly, I think it will do you a world of good. Obviously, the wingers are amazing, and Willie LaRue's been playing great, as I've been saying. One thing I am surprised about is that not so much that day later, 28 days later. Something that surprised me is that I'm not surprised 28 days later is on the pitch and starting, but what I am surprised is that after Esterhuizen's fantastic start against Australia, he can't even find himself on the bench. I'd really like to see Esterhuizen on that bench. You've got 3 backs there. You've got Lucano Arm in there, and I know he is very, very good. And I know they think highly of this guy, but he started at fly half last week, and he just wasn't any good, to be honest with you, at fly half. I understand he's not a natural fly half, but yeah, I would... thing is, I think he only plays outside centre, right? So I guess maybe you've got this guy for versatility. So I understand the decision. However, I don't know. I would like to see Esterhuizen in there, to be honest. I guess you're kind of limited because you've got no kind of spare fly half to bring on, so you need to have someone with a bit of versatility. But if that's the case, I would start Esterhuizen, because this guy, I think Damien Dennis boy, he didn't play well last weekend, and I'm all about playing the hot hand, not so much someone who's earned their position through legacy. So we'll see how it goes. I think this is going to be a complete thrashing, though. I think the story for this game is all about the Springboks coming back and being really, really annoyed how last week went. They're just going to come out going crazy. I just can't believe the Springboks won with the fly off for 10. Mind blowing. I think they're thinking this is the team that we should have had starting against the All Blacks. So put these guys out, let them rampage, and then this is the team that we kind of build around in terms of the going forwards. Maybe not necessarily all the way to World Cup, but this is the team that is starting this week, and it's their positions to lose. And I think that's probably the way to do it. We can talk a little bit about Argentina and how they had a feel-good game last weekend, 2 weekends ago. However, trying to think of an analogy here. Put it for you this way. You know when you play a video game and say Dark Souls or something, and you kill a boss, and you think that's as bad as it's going to get, but then you don't know what's coming around the corner in terms of a harder boss, and it happens and it just wipes you out straight away. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think there's any hope for them. I think they should enjoy it while it lasts, and they're going to get spanked. Thoroughly spanked. But that's it. I don't have much else to say, to be honest. I think it's going to be a good weekend. I think we've kind of already figured out who's the strongest team of these teams last week. I think for me, the ranking is New Zealand, Springboks. Oh, who's 3 and 4? I got to call it now. Argentina, Australia. Sorry, folks. Sorry, my Aussie brethren, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way it's coming out of this Rugby Championship. I think no matter what, I think you can put the Argentina game against the Springboks. I think you can put that aside. That's not going to affect how I think that Argentina are above Australia at the moment. And that's just what's coming out of the Southern Hemisphere. Although all four teams are Southern Hemisphere, so that is, I don't know why I'm doing quotation marks. That's the truth. That's what we've got coming out of the Southern Hemisphere. Out of the Northern Hemisphere, we'll talk about that another time. And I think that's just regardless of what happens this weekend. It makes no difference whatsoever. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm looking forward to the review this weekend because honestly, reviewing the games and sharing with you guys and talking about things that I'm seeing during the game, and then also putting those in shorts and getting those out there to other people, that was really cool. Thoroughly enjoyed that. And who knows, long-term future, how freaking cool would it be if we could legally go through game tape from start to finish with all camera angles? We'll go through all games. That'd be badass. But hey, pipe dream maybe. But we'll do the highlights at the very least. Stay safe out there. Have a good weekend wherever you are. Enjoy the rugby wherever it is. Should be a good one. I'll catch you on the review show. Peace.